Hey everyone, welcome to Wealth Redefined. I'm your host, Michael Reynolds, certified financial planner and owner of Elevation Financial. You can find me as always on the web at elevationfinancial.com. And today I'm going to talk to you about a guide to designating transfer on death beneficiaries for your vehicles. So we're going to talk about an estate planning topic, which is kind of niche, kind of specific, kind of detailed. But when it comes to estate planning, many people focus on things like homes, bank accounts, investments. But one often overlooked asset is their vehicle. So assigning a beneficiary to your vehicle can be a fairly simple and sometimes effective way to make sure that your car, your truck, your motorcycle, your vehicle is transferred to the person of your choice upon your death. The process is known as designating a transfer on death beneficiary, and it has the potential to save your loved one's time and money and kind of reduce the hassle of going through probate. So, it can provide peace of mind because you know that your wishes for your vehicle are carried out after your death, allows you to choose who receives your vehicle, whether it's a family member, a friend, even a charitable organization. And it can be really important if you have a specific person in mind who you believe would be appropriate or make best use of it. So, that's kind of what it's for. So let's talk about just kind of understanding what it means. What is the transfer on death beneficiary designation? So it's a legal arrangement that allows a vehicle owner to pass their vehicle directly to a named beneficiary upon the owner's death. So the designation is made on the vehicle's title or registration, and it ensures the vehicle is transferred to the beneficiary without going through the probate process. So probate can sometimes be time consuming, can sometimes be expensive, often requires court involvement, and can potentially cause delays in the distribution of these assets. And so it might be a great way to bypass probate and kind of make that process more efficient. So when a vehicle owner designates a transfer on death beneficiary, they retain full ownership and control of the vehicle during their lifetime. The beneficiary has no legal rights or claims to the vehicle until the owner's death. So this means the owner can still sell, trade, give away the vehicles they see fit, and the beneficiary can't interfere with those decisions. So additionally, the owner can change or revoke the transfer on death beneficiary designation at any time, which provides flexibility in case their preferences or their circumstances change. So it's important to note that the transfer on death, I'll just say TOD from now on, the TOD beneficiary designation is different than other methods of transferring vehicle ownership, like joint ownership or leaving the vehicle to someone in a will. Joint ownership grants the co-owner immediate rights to the vehicle, while a TOD beneficiary has no rights until the owner's death. Uh, in a similar fashion, leaving a vehicle to someone in a will subjects the vehicle to the probate process, which, again, that can be avoided with the TOD beneficiary designation. So, one of the primary advantages of the TOD beneficiary designation is that it allows for smooth and efficient transfer of vehicle ownership after the owner's death. The beneficiary can claim ownership of the vehicle by presenting a copy of the owner's death certificate and a valid form of identification to the appropriate state agency, which is generally the Department of Motor Vehicles. So it's typically much faster and typically less complicated than going through probate, which can involve court hearings and lots of paperwork and delays. So let's talk about eligibility and some limitations. So the option to designate a transfer on death beneficiary for a vehicle can be a valuable estate planning tool. It's also important to understand the eligibility requirements and those limitations. So if the vehicle is owned by more than one person, all owners typically have to agree to the TOD beneficiary designation. It's also important to note that some states may restrict the types of vehicles eligible for TOD beneficiary designation. For example, limiting options to only passenger vehicles or excluding certain types of vehicles. Another key consideration is that not all states allow TOD beneficiary designations for vehicles. So as of this episode date, only about half the states in the US have laws that allow TOD beneficiary designations. So some states that do allow these designations as of this episode date do include Arizona, Arkansas, California, Colorado, Connecticut, Delaware, Illinois, Indiana, Kansas, Maryland, Minnesota, Mississippi, Missouri, Nebraska, Nevada, New Jersey, Ohio, Oklahoma, Texas, Vermont, Virginia, and Wisconsin, with an asterisk next to Wisconsin, because Wisconsin allows transfer and death registration only of farm implements, which includes farm machinery and tractors. So there's always some nuances even in some of these states. However, even within these states, the specific requirements and the procedures, might vary. So you want to be sure you check with your local DMV or a legal professional licensed in that state to make sure that you're in compliance with these state laws. So in states that don't allow TOD beneficiary designations for vehicles, you might need to explore alternative methods such as creating a revocable living trust. So it's also worth noting that TOD beneficiary designations for vehicles might not be suitable in all situations. So, for example, if the vehicle is subject to a lien or has a loan on it, the lender's interest in the vehicle could take precedence over the TOD beneficiary's claim. So, in that case, the beneficiary might need to satisfy the outstanding debt before taking ownership of the vehicle. Also, if the vehicle owner wants to leave the vehicle to multiple beneficiaries, a TOD beneficiary designation might not be the most appropriate because typically they only allow for one named beneficiary. And that can get messy if you leave a car to multiple people. So ultimately, it can be straightforward and effective if your situation is simple enough or it makes sense in your situation. But you want to really carefully consider all the circumstances and make sure it's the right option for you. And again, look at those state laws. It may vary state by state to make sure it makes sense for you in your state or is even eligible in your state. So, what are the steps to assign a TOD beneficiary to a vehicle? So, let's say it's the right choice for you. You've made a intentional choice to do that. You want to obtain the forms from your DMV, which is your Department of Motor Vehicle in your state. And they're going to give you what's called, typically it's called a transfer on death beneficiary designation form or something similar to that. And you can usually find them on your state's DMV website or go to your office, but they're pretty much all on the website. So if you Google, for example, transfer on death beneficiary designation for a vehicle in Indiana, for example, then you're likely going to find it. So fill out the form, obviously. You're going to put stuff in like personal information, name, address, driver's license info, vehicle information, make, model, year, all that stuff. And you'll designate the beneficiary with their full legal name and address. And some states might allow multiple beneficiaries or even contingent beneficiaries in case your primary beneficiary predeceases you. Again, it's going to vary state by state. Make sure it's all correct. And then you'll turn that back into your DMV. And then sometimes they'll need to be notarized. So depending on the state, you might need to have it notarized to make it valid. And there might be a fee as well, depending on your state. And you want to keep a copy of the completed notarized form for your records. And, also provide a copy to your beneficiary so they're aware of the arrangement as well. And so they'll process the TOD beneficiary designation. They'll update your vehicle's title or registration to reflect the beneficiary's name on that. And remember, you can change or revoke the TOD beneficiary designation on your vehicle at any time by filling out a new form, submitting it to your DMV, or just make sure you keep it up to date. So again, when it comes to changing or revoking it, things may change. Your preferences may change. Your situation may change. So you'll fill out the new form. You can revoke it by sending a written request to your DMV as well. Again, look to them for guidance. Every state might vary, so just look for the process for how to revoke it as well. So again, make sure you keep it up to date. Reevaluate this to make sure it makes sense and that your wishes are still current. So what happens after the owner's death? What happens if you pass and you've got this TOD beneficiary designation in place? When the owner passes away, the process is generally pretty streamlined as opposed to probate. Probate can be, again, time consuming, expensive, but the steps to take ownership of the vehicle can be a lot smoother if you have that beneficiary designation. So they obtain a certified copy of the owner's death certificate, as well as their ID and information as well. And they go to their DMV and they present the information, and the DMV will then complete a transfer of ownership form. They might need additional documentation, again, depending on the state, and there might be some fees to be paid for the transfer. And then the beneficiary will receive a new title or registration in their name that officially confirms ownership of the vehicle. So it's important to note that the beneficiary might need to pay any outstanding debts or liens on the vehicle, if there are any, before the transfer can be completed. In some cases, the beneficiary might choose not to keep the vehicle. They might decide to sell it. If this is the case, their state might have guidelines for selling the vehicle, which might involve transferring ownership to the new buyer and completing necessary paperwork. So So those are options as well. So, whether it's, whatever you decide to do, you want to make sure that you keep your beneficiary designation on your vehicle up to date and, follow the process in your estate for the forms. And again, that can help ensure a smooth transition to your beneficiary without going through probate. And again, probate's not the worst thing in the world, but if it can be avoided and it makes sense, then this is a way to do it that could streamline the process of settling your estate, which includes your vehicles as well. So keep that in mind. And as always, if you have questions, feel free to reach out. You can reach me on my website, which is elevationfinancial.com. You can send me a message through my website. You can find me on social media, which is linked from my website. I'm pretty much everywhere. Or if you want to consider becoming a client, always happy to chat about that. You can book a consultation online from my website, and we can chat about your questions or anything on your mind. All right, with that, thanks for joining me today. Have a great day. We'll see you next time.